I know that a lot of speakers and teachers will get up and will sort of talk hypothetically about, oh, here's how to maximize your album sales, and here's how to do this, and here's how to do that. But nobody actually kind of lays bare their financial state and says, listen, this is what it costs to live, this is what it costs to be in business, this is where I'm struggling, this is where I'm having problems. And if I can't be completely honest with you, then I am absolutely no use to you in any way, shape, or form. So if you do have any questions, even if they're personal questions, please feel free to ask them during this section. I'm here to help you, come back next year and be stronger and make more money and not have to worry about retirement and not have to lay awake at night and think, am I going to be able to do this? Yes, those fears are very, very, very normal in business, but if hopefully some of this can help you take a little bit of the edge off, that would be great. So, the first thing that I want to talk to you about is business and personal funds. Do you mingle your business funds with your personal funds? And for me, the answer is no, absolutely not, absolutely never, ever, ever, ever in the world, no. Part of it is because I don't want to pierce the corporate veil in an accounting sense by using my business funds to pay for my personal life. Second of all, how in the world can I budget for my business or budget for my personal life if the funds are intermingling, right? Part of it is because I have to think about my business as a job. Yeah, it's a business that I own and I'm my own boss and I'm the one who sets my hours and all of that, but I need to bring in a paycheck, right? I need to not just go to the business account and just take money whenever I need it. So I actually pay myself like I'm an employee. I budget for both my business and my personal funds. I don't just take money and spend it whenever I feel like it because I think that that's a sure path back, into credit card debt, or into failing, or into needing to take out a loan. And I want you guys to be able to do this without those sort of heavy money burdens. And I don't mean to sound like Dave Ramsey so quickly after lunch, but you do need to be very mindful of your finances, or like your workflow, if you're not careful to stay on top of it, it's going to eat you alive. I need to be mindful of how much money is coming in and how much money is going out because I have to plan for my taxes. And if we're talking about actual numbers, every time I pay quarterly taxes, that's 4 times a year, I'm spending over $20,000 in taxes. I write a $17,000 check to the IRS every single quarter. And the more money I make, the more money they get from me. And I am not even remotely going to start talking to you about politics or the way that I feel about taxes or our government. We're just going to say it is what it is and move right on. Planning for the future. It's not enough to think, am I profitable right now? Am I making enough money that I can put it away for the future? Do I want to shoot weddings until I eventually die of a heart attack in a pew, before the family formals? I don't. I'd like to travel. I'd like to see the world. I'd like to spend more time with my husband. I would like to actually be able to retire like a normal person does, but nobody's matching the funds I'm putting in my 401k. Nobody's going to give me a pension when I retire. I have to do it myself. I'd like to help my children with their education. I'd like to make sure that they're set up nicely in life, and I would like to be comfortable. So I have to plan for all of these things for now as well as in the future. Okay, so if you take a look along the side, this is how much it costs to be me. And I'd like to bear in mind that I do live in New York. I live in New York City. And to be really specific, I go back and forth between a home in Brooklyn and a home in New Jersey. The reason why I do this, if any of you really want to know, since we're talking very candidly, my ex-husband and my children are in Brooklyn. My husband has the same situation out in New Jersey. We cannot move or merge or anything like that, so we go back and forth, which means 2 separate households, which means 2 businesses in 2 different places. So we have to stay right on top of it. And when I am looking at all of these numbers, even married, even if I were living with my husband full-time all the time and had been for years, I still want to make sure that I can support my family by myself. Not because I don't trust him, not because I'm planning for some inevitable divorce of some kind, but because I would like to know that I can care for my family as the breadwinner. I spend $43,800 a year in rent. That sucks. It sucks a lot. It's New York City. Where you live will determine how much you spend to live where you are. I'm not living in a palace. I don't own my home. I rent. It's a better financial decision for me to be a renter instead of an owner based on my long-term plans living in New York. All down here, you can see what I'm spending on my internet. You can see that I put $24,000 a year away for my retirement. You can see what I'm spending for my business insurance, what I have for my car payments and my car insurance and kid things and all of these things. And I came up to the total of $143,230 needed to come in to get me through the year. Now, I realize that there are probably some things that I have left off of that, just some intangibles, things that arise, emergencies. What if the type of car I drive, if I blow one tire, I have to actually replace all of them, which I wish I'd known that when I bought it. But I need to plan for things like that because I don't want to put that on a credit card. And I don't want to have to go to my savings account and tap the money out of that. I would also, maybe like to take my kids on a vacation during the year. And I'm not talking about anything crazy. I'd like to take them to Disney World. That would be pretty cool. Or, when I'm done here in Seattle, I'd like to stay an extra week while my kids are busy on a road trip and visit some friends and eat some food. And I don't want to put that on credit. I want to be able to pay for that. So I take that $143,000 number and just to stress myself out, I just raise it up to $200,000. So let's say I want to bring in $200,000 after taxes. And now I do want to clarify for those of you who might be joining me for the very first time, I'm not an accountant. I'm not a financial expert. I don't have a degree in finance or business or anything like that, but I do have a very practical head and a pretty decent amount of common sense. And this is what's getting me through so far. So if I want to bring in $200,000, I need to remember that that's post-tax money. That sucks. So I need to factor in the taxes that I'm going to pay throughout the year. So if I'm going to do that, I'm going to conservatively estimate that I need to bring in $260,000 a year so that I'm left with $200,000 after taxes. Well, I don't know about you, but when I look at this makes me want to go back to bed and kind of cry for a little while and then watch bad TV because this is very, very, very intimidating. And what I don't want to happen is I don't want you guys to get into the chat rooms and be like, well, she could probably pay less for her internet, or if she didn't save so much for the future, she wouldn't have to make so much, or, oh, wow, like poor first world problem, you want to go on vacation every single year. But I'm trying to put together an ideal world for me. I'm not saying that I need this much to live, but I want to make $1 million a year because that's not reasonable. But if you're looking at where you need to start pricing yourself, you need to figure out what you need to get through the year. However your life is structured, you need to lay out those numbers and you need to really look at them. So yeah, and a lot of people look at this and they're like, well, but yeah, you got married, so don't you want to work a little bit less? Partly because of what our situation is, no. I mean, we still have this dual household thing which is going on, and partly it's personal. Partly I want to show my children that their mother can raise them by herself if she had to. I want my girls and my stepdaughters, when they grow up, to realize if you want a nice pair of shoes, you don't need your husband to buy them for you. You can buy them for yourself. So I'm trying to be a role model to my children more than anything else to show them that your mom can take care of the whole family by herself. So, now that I've said that, we take a look at how many weddings can I shoot per year? How many weddings do I have to shoot per year to make that amount of money? That's really daunting. So that's, the first place that I go. So then I look, okay, $260,000 a year. I can't even sit. I just have to pace while I'm talking about this. This is the first time, and I'm being completely honest with you, this is the first time in 3 days that I've actually been nervous talking to you because I'm telling you about my personal finances. And, that's a level of sharing that I don't normally do with people. But if I'm not honest with you, I can't help you. So I look at how many weddings I want to shoot a year, and I say, okay, I'm looking at New York, and I'm looking at how many are coming in and how many I could maybe viably book. And let's say I only want to do about 40 weddings a year. Okay, so at 40 weddings a year at $260,000 in take home, I've got to have left, after my cost of sales and everything, I have to have $6,500 left after each wedding. After I pay my assistant, after I pay for my post-processing, after I buy the album that I need, is my final take home from that $6,500? Well, if it's not, what in the world am I supposed to do? Can I shoot more weddings? Luckily, I can. I can get to 50 weddings a year, and you can do the math on what my take-home needs to be at 50 weddings a year to get to that number. Or is 50 weddings a year just simply not feasible where you are? Do you get to your number and you say, in Sarasota or in Kentucky, I can't do 50 weddings a year. And this average is insane. I can't do that. Then you take a look at two things. Maybe your number in your left-hand column is a little unreasonable. Maybe you're pushing for a little bit too much too soon. Maybe you need to scale back in some ways. Or maybe you look at your business and you think, I should really diversify. Maybe I want to open a portrait side of things. Maybe I want to do headshots, or maybe I want to specialize in boudoir. Now I teach, and I'm not going to stand up in front of you and say that I teach for free. I do make money off of teaching, or else, I'm thrilled to help you, but if I'm going to give up all of this time to be away from my family, or if I'm going to go to a convention, or I'm going to teach a workshop and be away from my kids and away from my business, I have to be financially compensated for that. But when I'm looking at the numbers that I want to make every single year, I'm taking teaching out of it entirely, because I don't ever want to rely on that as a source of my income. I do teach. That does help me. And it has been very, very, very generous to me, and it's very humbling how generous it's been to me. But what I mostly try to do to make up maybe a little bit extra or a little bit on top is I try to upsell my clients in the collections that they've purchased. I try to make their album a little bit bigger. Most of the weddings that I shoot have 1 to 2 hours of overtime. A lot of people do engagement sessions, or they add on the photo booth. I have a pretty good rate of taking, even if it's just the 7 hours in files collection, and getting it to 9 hours. Or maybe they add something, or maybe they come back later and they eventually buy a book. I've got a pretty good return on what I'm getting from these people. These are my prices. Don't shop me, they're right here. These are what my collections are. You can screenshot this and read it all day long. It's not a world trade secret, it's my price list. I can show it to you all day, and it's not going to help you do anything other than know my price list. My base collection is 7 hours of coverage by me. I do bring an assistant. I used to have the assistant listed on my price list, 7 hours of wedding day photography by Susan Stripling, and an assistant. But it was really confusing people, and they were thinking that that meant and a second shooter. So I took that off, and if they do ask, do you have an assistant, I tell them absolutely. But the coverage is by me and me alone. The 7-hour collection also, and I can recite it by memory, a private password-protected online image gallery for easy viewing and reordering of prints. I've said it so many times. What that means is that's your Zenfolio gallery. It goes up and it stays up like forever. I tell them that I guarantee it for a year. I have not ever actually retired a gallery because I'm using it for online backup. And I don't need to retire them. And they get their wedding day digital files. I include their files in their collection. I do not charge additionally for their files. I understand that it might be very different from a lot of photographers, but I view their files as a final product. They have been sent off, they have been massaged and loved and edited. They haven't been insanely retouched, but they're a beautiful gallery of images. And I think that in this day and age, maybe half of you are about to log off after I say this, but your digital files can be a beautiful final product. When I got married, I have my images on my phone, they're on my iPad, they're on my computer. We're gonna make an album. I've got prints in the house, but the digital component of it, to be able to have them with me when I go, to me that's important. And to a lot of people that's important. And I think that it's a product, and some of my friends and I go around and around and around on the files. I don't give the files away. At $5,500 for 7 hours of coverage, they've bought their files. Then we step up from there. Collection 2 gives you another hour of coverage. It also gives you a 9x12 album with 65 images for $8,000. Then you can jump up one step above that. You get another hour of coverage. You get a bigger book with more images. You get 2 individual parent albums. Your parent albums are not clones of your albums. They're not clones of each other. They're individual. You can order them for your parents, or they can do it on their own. And those are the 3 collections I have. I also have add-on items. Say you want to do collection 3, but you want to add on a parent album. You can absolutely do that. If you want a set of 4x6 proofs, we can put that in your package. Engagement sessions, day after sessions, photo booths, reprints, upgrades. I keep this to one sheet because I don't want to overwhelm people. I want it to be very easy and very cut and dried, and if they're flipping back and forth between multiple pages in a price list, I feel like it really starts to confuse them. Or if there's multiple, like many packages, it gets to be a little hard to understand. So these are my prices. Any questions about the structure of my collections, or why, or
I just want to let you know, we're getting a ton of feedback from the internet on just thanking you for being so honest and upfront with
Are they all
this.
crying that the rent is really
They
expensive?
are. Well, no, not about that.
If anyone wants to let me come live with them, that will also be cool.
Yeah, just tons of love. Karen Chang, I love you for being so honest and such a wonderful and strong role model for your daughters. Kudos for teaching this. Just thank you. So yeah.
Can you talk for another second so I don't cry about my daughters? Okay.
And now we'll move on to questions.
And now I'm going to get a guitar and sing you a song. No, but yeah, these are my prices, and this is what I've come to. And if you have any questions about why I've put the collections together this way, Michelle.
So collection number 3 is at $5,500.
Yes, ma'am.
So are you saying, like, based on all your calculations, that's the minimum? Because other than paying your assistant, right, on that one? Oh no, I guess what's your gross margin?
What's my take home on that?
Yes.
With the, and again, there's going to be people who are like, oh, you're not taking into account X, Y, and Z. Yeah. My only like hard costs with that are the money that I pay my assistant and the money that I pay post-production.
Right.
Everything else when I think of, but I have to break down per wedding what the gear costs and what my website costs and whatnot. I've thought about that in my budget in a very different way. I'm just looking at the hard costs of producing that one wedding. Collection 3 is the only one that doesn't have a product that I have to factor in. So when I'm done with collection 3, after I've paid sidecar and after I've paid my assistant, I'm left with about $4,800 out of that, before taxes, obviously. So, yes, sir.
Which is your most popular collection?
The second one.
Okay.
Most people, actually, what usually happens is that most people, and I would say 75% of my clients, book the third one, and then a large portion of them upgrade to the second one by the time the wedding rolls around. By the time they've gotten past the sticker shock and put their budget together, and they come back and they're like, you know what, we really did think about it. It's like a $2,500 difference to get that extra hour that we're going to need you for anyhow, and a book. And I tell people that, yeah, if you want to do collection 3, that's great, and you want to come back in a year and buy the album, you can buy the album, but the album prices are discounted when they've been put together in the collection. Mm-hmm. So you do, get a little bit of a better deal if you buy it now, and then that locks that price in for a year. I don't know what my album company is going to do as far as their pricing. You might come back in a year and they might have really changed it on me. I mean, they're not going to. But, their increments are very rational, but you do want to give the client a reason to go ahead and do it now. And also, if they wait to do it later, they're just not going to do it later because they're going to forget about it. Mm-hmm. So my most profitable one, when it comes right down to it, is probably the second one. Collection 1, even at 10.5, is still a little low for my liking, for the amount of workflow that go into the products afterwards. Mm-hmm. But right now, what you guys have to understand is that you guys know who I am, and the photographers that are watching this know who I am. Brides don't know who I am. None of this means anything to them at all. And if you think that if you become popular, I'm staring right at you right now actually, if you think that becoming popular amongst photographers is going to make you popular amongst clients, you're completely insane. Like, you're really missing the point. It's a completely different market. Now, being here looks beautiful on my resume, which helps a client trust me a little bit more. If a client can see, oh, okay, she's at a point in her career where people in her field are turning to her for advice, maybe there's something there. But nobody's going to book me because they saw me on Creative Live. It's just not even in the same ballpark. So
related to that a little bit, we have a question from Rosie. How do you deal with pricing for friends and family? Do you have a different? Good answer.
First of all, I'm not going to work for my family. That's not going to happen. Like, it's just not, Like, if my brother were to get married, I'd probably shoot my brother's wedding if he got married on a Friday or a Sunday or a Wednesday. But if he picks a Saturday in the middle of the summer, no, I'm just kidding. Probably I wouldn't be able to go, right? So, I would shoot my brother's wedding. If Jen ever got married, I'd probably shoot Jen's wedding. There are a few people that it would be an honor for me to give that to them, but we're talking about like 3 people in the entire world.
Yeah.
When I shot my friend Carlin's wedding, my friend Mary Beth and I did it as a gift to her. But when my third cousin rolls around and he's getting married, and I am not not giving friends a discount, it is the quickest way to kill, like a casual friend, like maybe someone you knew from high school. No friends and family. I would actually really rather you just hire somebody else and let me come to your wedding, which I probably can't come to because I probably already have a wedding.
And
Yes,
Susan, are
yes,
you
ma'am.
a sole prop or an S corp or an LLC?
I'm a sole prop.
Okay,
Sorry, I'm an LLC.
LLC.
I'm so sorry. I was thinking I'm not an S. Let me explain why I just spazzed on that. When I was in Florida, I was an S corp. I had employees that worked for me, and it benefited me tax-wise better to be an S corp. Moving to New York, I'm an LLC.
Okay.
And I don't mean to be up here like sounding like I'm hawking my own product, but I do, out of all of the think books that I sell, one of them is entitled Business.
Great.
And it goes heavily into detail on what you should be and why. Like, should you be a sole proprietorship? You know, how do you find the tax professionals to work with you? All of these things in like 10 times more written detail. It's almost 100 pages long. Okay. So it's only $25 today. If you want a companion piece, you know, take a look. You don't have to buy it. It's okay. But if you want to, it's pretty sweet. And it even has some pictures.
Awesome.
So that you don't just cry reading this nonstop. We put in a few pretty pictures to look at too. So it's very cool.
And again, you can find those on Susan's site at susanstripling.com/shop.
Commercial over. All right.
We do have a couple more questions. Is now a good
Before I
time?
yell at
I know, that slide's really
I'm gonna
exciting.
sit down. Before I yell at you in large capital letters, please ask me your questions.
I feel like there needs to be a big lead up to that next
Or
slide.
like something like that. All right.
So sometimes Becca Blake has the situation where clients want to add a few more hours while you're at the reception.
Yeah, dude.
And how do you explain it to them that it's not free?
It's overtime, right? Like,
Yeah.
it gets managing expectations. I have overtime on my price list. We've talked about their wedding day timeline beforehand, and I will tell them, you know, I know your reception's over at 11, you've got me until 9. At about 8:45, you know, I'll come grab you, or if you'd prefer, I can grab your mom. I'll grab, you know, whoever you want to make kind of the financial decision of the overtime thing, whether it's you or whether it's, you know, your dad or whoever you need me to talk to. And I'll say, hey guys, it's 8:45, you know, I'm done at 9. Is there anything else I can do for you before I go, or do you want me to stay for another couple of hours? Oh yeah, stay for another couple of hours. Then you have the every once in a while when they're like, well, I didn't realize that, you know, you stayed for a couple of hours, we didn't want to pay for the overtime. Okay, that's totally fine. I'm so sorry. I completely misunderstood that you wanted me to stay until 11. I was meant to be done at 9. Listen, don't worry about it at all. I'll dump those 2 hours of pictures and it's cool. Like, seriously, you don't have to pay me for it. I'll just deliver the images up through 9 o'clock.
Bam.
It's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
And honestly, if it did, if there really was a communication mismatch and they wanted me to dump everything after 9, I'd do it. You know, it's fine. But for the most part, we've talked about, and I've even said on the day of, you know, if you decide at the last minute you want me to keep staying, I'll keep staying. You don't have to pull out your checkbook on the dance floor. I'll just invoice you after the wedding. Take care of it when you get back from your honeymoon. I just need to get your payment before your products are ready. Nice and easy.
Yeah.
Because some people don't know. Like, some people think they want you to go at 9, but then their reception goes until 11 and they're partying super hard and they're like, oh my God, no, you can't go. You have to stay. Okay, I'll stay. I don't have another wedding on your day. You know, I can totally stay for a while longer. It's not a problem. Yeah.
All right. Sean Caton wants to know, what factors do you consider when you're going to raise your prices, and how do you decide what to raise them to?
It's really fantastic that you should say that, because
Good.
that would segue actually humorously into, thank you for the setup there. So now that I've screamed this at you like 4 times, we're going to scream it again. I hate this. Just double your rates and shoot half the weddings. Like, you'd work half the time. It would be awesome. Well, okay, that's fine. We'll take that $5,500. We'll turn it to $11,000. That's cool. So maybe I'll do 25 weddings a year. Well, then I go from 50 brides talking about me and 50 venues talking about me and 50 opportunities to be published to 25. I've only been in New York for 5 years. I've barely scratched the surface. Most people have no clue who I am. And I'm still clawing my way kind of through the ranks. And I'm nowhere near the high end in New York at all. Photographers kind of know who I am, but the venues and everybody, they're still getting to know me. So I want that pool of 50 clients every single year, because it's 50 opportunities to have somebody else get to know me. I just think that, yes, there's some validity to be said for this, but oftentimes it can be very misleading, and maybe we'll give you another year or two of good success, but then what do you do when you've effectively nixed half of your advertising pool? Is that really something that will work for you? If so, do it. If not, maybe reconsider it. Oops, we backs up. Okay. So from here, it's mainly I just want to talk to you for about an hour. When we're talking about something like raising your prices, like when do you raise your prices? I have my comfort numbers, right? Like if I've got 20 weddings by the beginning of September, I'm feeling pretty good. If I've got 30 to 35 by the beginning of the year, I'm feeling pretty good. If I'm a little ahead of where I think I should be, I'm comfortable with a price experiment. My last price list, let me actually page back to it so you can take a look at it. My last price list, collection 3, was 8 hours of photography and your files for $5,500. So instead of raising the $5,500, I pulled an hour out of the coverage. If they want 8 hours, now they put in an hour of overtime, and we go from $5,500 to $5,900 for what was essentially $5,500 before. Now I could go collection 3, 8 hours for $5,900, but I'm a little nervous making a $400 jump like that. So I'm going to pull something out of the collection and leave it at the same price. Or maybe I'm going to raise it by $100 or $200. When I very first got started, I was charging like $1,200, and then I went to $15, and then I went to like $25, and then I went to like $35. But by the time I got up to like $4, I went from $4 to $42, from $42 to $45, $45 to $47, $47 to $49, then I went to $5. Because for me, like when a client is looking at something, $4,900 looks a lot different than $5,000. It's just $100, but you see that 5, and all of a sudden it seems so much more expensive. And then I went from 5 to 52, and then 53, and then 54, and then 55. And every time I booked a couple of weddings, I bump it up just a hair. And I'm at a point right now where I'm more expensive than I ever have been, and I'm coupling that with a little bit of a slow summer. I'm very slow inquiry-wise, which means I'm slow booking-wise. But that automatically makes me start thinking, oh God, maybe I pushed a little too far a little too soon. If 6 weeks from now, to be perfectly honest, I'm still kind of slow. If my inquiries pick back up but my bookings are still kind of slow, maybe I jumped the gun a little bit on this price increase. Maybe I put that extra hour back into the lower package. It's never a finite thing. Like you're always tinkering back and forth with how you set these things. But I'm going to hang out here for a while. I'm okay. I have 17 for next year right now. If I can pick up 3 more by the end of the month, honestly, if I can pick up 2 more by the end of the month, I'll feel pretty good. But if I haven't picked up anything, then I need to start looking and seeing, are my inquiries down? Or are my inquiries the same but my bookings are down? Like what's the factor? Because if my inquiries are the same and my bookings are down, maybe I need to look at my pricing, or maybe I need to look at how I'm presenting myself to people. Maybe that's not quite as effective as I think it is. But if my inquiries are down, then the problem isn't my pricing, the problem is that I'm not getting out to enough people, right? So maybe I need to, increase an advertising channel somewhere, or start getting back out there, and maybe I haven't been shaking hands enough recently with enough venues. Maybe I just need to start pounding the pavement a little bit more. So when things are slow, don't automatically knee-jerk your prices back to what they were before, but also don't make massive, huge increases in your price lists. If I went from 55 to 9, I would essentially alienate the entire client base that I have right now. Because when my clients are referring me to their friends are kind of able to manage to they're generally on the same booking level. But I'm jumping up into a whole new client pool and a whole new pool of weddings. That's a really risky jump without being able to back that up with something. So yeah, I mean, this whole thing is very scary. But if you're unsure about whether the time to raise your prices is now, maybe bump it by just a few $100s and then wait and see. And there is absolutely no shame and absolutely no problem in pulling back and saying, okay, maybe I jumped the gun a little bit. Or even worse, which is the hardest thing to do, which is to look at your own work and say, am I worth that? Right? I am confidently worth $5,500 for 7 hours. Am I confidently worth $11,000 for 7 hours? I don't think so, which is why I'm not $11,000 for 7 hours. You know, if you're doing your numbers analysis and I realize, okay, I have to shoot 40 weddings a year at nearly $5,000 a wedding, is my work good enough or on the right level in my market to bring in that amount? If it's not, what do I do? Well, then I diversify. Maybe I look to do portraits. Maybe I look to do something else. Maybe you do that horrible thing that nobody wants to talk about, which is you go back to work full time. You know, health insurance is so blindingly expensive. If you can imagine what it's like for my husband and I running our own businesses with children, it's really painful. But we're not going to go without health insurance. So what if we sit down and we take a really hard look at our finances and we realize what we're paying every single month in health insurance? I could go back to work full time and I could get better health insurance. There's no shame in going back to work full time. There's no shame in going back to work part time. There's nothing wrong with saying this isn't working how I thought it would. I need to go back to my safety net before I'm ready to go back out again. There are a lot of people who will get up here and will be like, just quit your job and just go out into the world and, you know, whatever savior you believe in will help provide for you. Well, unless he wrote me a business plan, I don't know what, you know, praying at night is. I mean, yes, you have to have faith that you're going to be able to succeed in what you're doing, but jumping out like an idiot with just blind faith and absolutely no safety net, no idea of what you're doing, I'm sorry, you don't deserve for someone to catch you. You deserve to fall on your face until you figure out how to do it. So if you're thinking about, should I quit my job, are you making enough money from photography to be able to quit your job? Will the time that you can spend in your photography business after you quit your job enable you to? And if that doesn't work, what plan do you have for taking care of yourself? You know, if this all falls out from underneath me, guys, I'm hosed. Like, I have a theater degree and 6 months of waiting tables. I have nothing to go back to. So I'm really hoping this kind of works because I can't go back to my day job because I didn't have a day job. But if you have a marketable skill and you need some extra finances, go capitalize on that marketable skill. You know, get your part-time job. Teach. Be a lawyer if you were a lawyer and you left to follow your dream of photography. You have to take care of yourselves. And taking out credit cards so that you can keep going in this is moronic. Like, that's just, it's going to not be good for your health because you're going to be totally and completely stressed out. And how in the world can you even budget for something like this when you have a mountain of debt sitting on top of that to do it too? When I look at my finances, I have a personal account, I have a business account, I have a personal savings account, I have a business savings account. I have savings accounts for my children, I have college accounts for my children, I have my SEP IRA, and I have my investment account. I work with a financial advisor to help with my investment accounts. I am not a financial advisor. Therefore, when I look at investing my money for the future, I need to talk to someone who knows what they're talking about, right? So I have someone who helps me with that, and that's not my accountant, that's somebody else actually entirely differently. And he helps me figure out, if I want to send my kids to college, what should I be putting away every single month? If I want to retire, what should I be putting away every single month? And every single month I write myself a paycheck. And how that works, I have a set amount that literally on the 20th of every single month auto debits from my business account and shows up in my personal account. Then periodically throughout the month, money just keeps disappearing from my business account, going into my savings accounts and going into my investment accounts. That way I don't have to remember to write these checks. And when the money's just gone, for me, it's gone. And when I manage, as I smack my mic, when I manage my personal finances, I'm not even looking at my business account. It doesn't matter how much money is in my business checking account. If I'm down to $500 in my personal account and I want to buy a pair of shoes, I'm not going to borrow from my business account and put it in my personal account to buy shoes. I've run out of my money for the month. I need to wait till I get paid again. You know, that's just how that works for me. And I just can't view my corporate funds as a pool that I can keep dipping into. Now, don't get me wrong, I give myself raises. If I realize that I'm doing really well and I should, be pulling a little bit more money on my end, by all means, I'm going to give myself a raise. It would be really sad if I never gave myself a raise. Michelle?
So I think I heard you say for sure you had a savings account for your business side. And
Yes.
I'm wondering if your financial advisor helped you with that, or did you, clearly you would have had to list a reason of why you would what you would possibly spend it on or for growth or whatever to figure out the percentage. Is there?
The way I manage each of my accounts, okay, my personal account is what pays my personal bills. I pay my rent, I pay my utility bills, I buy my clothes, we buy food. Everything that if you had a 9 to 5 and you got your paycheck, what you spend that on is what I use my personal account for. My business account runs my business, obviously. It buys my albums, it does my deliverables. I do have an Amex card. The reason being is because the rewards are insane. But I pay it off at the end of every single month, right? It's not like revolving credit like that. My business savings account and my personal savings account shouldn't be confused with my investment accounts. Those are different. My business savings account is the account that I make angry fists about, that I put my money in so that I can pay my taxes. Because the last thing in the world I want is for September to roll around and me to just suddenly need like 20 grand extra in my business checking account. So if I know every 4 months I need to have $20,000, I'm going to automatically pull money out every single month so that at the end of those 4 months I've got that $20,000. Then I go to my savings account, I pull it back, and I pay my taxes. Okay. If I find I have a surplus of funds in my account, I'll simply pay out of my account and I'll just let that sit in my savings account. If I don't need to pull it, I won't. What's going into my personal savings account is my emergency money. Because I don't want to touch my investment accounts for emergency money. I want it there in case I need to repair my car, or in case something happens and I don't know, whatever. It's emergency money is emergency money. And based on the Dave Ramsey way of thinking, you need about 6 months of income in your savings account. So I figure out what 6 months of income are, and I break it down and I put a portion of it in there every single month. Sometimes at the end of the year, that's the pot that I'll go back to pull to fully fund my SEP IRA, which is the IRA that you can fund with pre-tax money, right? And I max out my SEP IRA every single year. Part of why I'm working so hard, part of why I shoot so many weddings, is because I'm still relatively young, and I want to fund all of these accounts as fully as I possibly can for the future. So the business savings is to hold for taxes. The personal savings is to sort of hold for emergencies and to fund my IRA at the end of the year. And the way we came to the money for my children's savings, or my children's accounts and my personal investment account is based on him doing the calculations of how much will you need to send your children to college. And if you want to retire somewhere near the income level that you're at now, how much should you be putting away now if you want to retire at 55 or 60 or 65? So I said, listen, look at my income now, tell me the number, I'll tell you if it's something that I'm comfortable putting away. If he told me, I want you to put away $24,000 a year plus $30,000 a year into your SEP IRA, and I knew that that wasn't going to be possible, I'd say, okay, I understand that that's like the goal, but that's not what I'm going to be able to do. So help me figure out like a lower number that I'm more comfortable with. And that's partly why he gets paid for what he does the way he does, because he's advising me. He doesn't make money if I don't make money. So he's helping me figure out. And once a quarter, I go to my accountant and I go back to my financial advisor. I go to my accountant and I say, hey, I'm about to pay taxes. Can you look at my income for the year? Let me know if what I'm paying is still, in line. Now, I've done some speaking engagements and I sell some products. And as I've told you before, I'm not here for free. So if this spikes my income, I need to go back to him and I need to say, hey, listen, I had a good weekend. Let me know how this is going to affect my taxes for the rest of the year. Because I don't want tax time to come around, and because I'm anal retentive, I never file extensions. I always do it right on time. I don't want to, you all look at me like, no, I want to know. Like, I don't want tax time to roll around and owe a ton of money that I didn't know that I was going to owe. I want to be on top of it. I would actually rather overpay. And then if I have money that's supposed to come back to me at the end of tax time, I'll just apply it into the next year's taxes and not take a refund. Because I'd rather just put it, you're going to give it back to me, I'm going to give it back to you. Like, why would you do that? So I am incredibly aggressive about how much I save because I am very mindful of the future. I love taking pictures, but when you take the taking pictures part out of it, I'm a small business owner, which is not an easy thing to be right now. Our economy doesn't really love us all that much, right? Taxes are brutal. So I have to divorce the camera and a dream part from the business and the reality part. which is I can't just be floating month to month. I've got kids. Even if I didn't have kids, this is my job, right? You know, and I need to treat it as such. Yes, ma'am.
So that paycheck that you give yourself every month, is that based on your personal breakdown that you showed us in the beginning, and you say, okay, I'll take this, divide by 12. Okay, cool. And now, second part of the question.
I mean, it's exactly the same as like if you were going to go get a day job right now, how much money do you want to make as a salary?
Right.
It's kind of along the same things. And as things go up, like as my kids' after school goes up, I have to go back to my business and think, can I afford to give myself a raise right now?
Right. Okay. And then in terms of percentage, when you're talking about things like gear, and you always say, I buy if I have the cash. How do you determine that? Is there a benchmark you're looking at, or is it just sort of like,
When I buy my gear, I'm buying it out of my business funds.
Right.
And for me, it's simply sitting down and looking at how much is in my account. Have I had a really good month? In June, I've had an extraordinary month. I shot 11 weddings. It was phenomenal. But then I have to look ahead and say, okay, December, January, and February are going to be kind of light. A smart thing to do in those months would be to bank that money and put it away, like put a bunch of it away, so that when I need to pay myself my salary in those quiet months, that I have the money to do so. Now, when I break that all out, like, my salary for the entire year, which if you really want to know is $8,500 a month, which is what I put in my personal account. Told you I'd tell you everything. When I look at my business account and I say, okay, like maybe it's September, and I've got enough money to pay myself through the rest of the year, and then some, am I now okay to make a purchase? And that's something that you have to figure out your comfort level. I have a comfort level in my business checking account. I don't like my business checking account to dip below $20,000. Because for me, that's my emergency fund in my account. That's if every single client hit me up right now to make their album, and I had, you know what I mean? And I had to like spend a lot of it. That's just, it's my comfort number. And part of it is because I figured it out as my comfort number. Part of it is because it's just personally, it's where I feel good. So then you have to look at, okay, above and beyond your comfort number, can I continue to pay myself for a while? Am I now then comfortable making a purchase out of these funds? And I can't tell you when that is. I'm just asking you to analyze all of your data before you then make a move. And if your answer is not comfortably, yes, I can buy this in cash, I don't want you to buy your gear on credit. Like, that's gonna stress you out. Like, that's not, don't do that. Yes.
Yeah, we have some great ones. Bryn Leah wants to know, do your collections there, the price list, include tax, or is tax in addition?
They do not include tax.
Okay, great.
And you have to also, I'm begging you to make sure with your state, if you actually can include tax in your collection. In New York, New Jersey, you have to break it out and it has to be a separate line item.
Okay.
As far as tax goes, do not tell me that I'm doing it wrong. I know I'm not doing it wrong. And the way it goes where I am, my business is based in New York. If you have bought Collection 3, it doesn't matter where you live or where your wedding was, your final thing is a digital download. I'm not giving you a final product. I'm FedExing you nothing. No matter where you are, there's no tax on that. Then you step up to a physical product. It doesn't matter where your wedding is, it matters where I've sent your physical product. If I'm sending you your album to the state of New York, I have to tax your whole collection. I am not making sales tax. I am not earning sales tax. I'm not charging you sales tax. I'm collecting it for the state of New York. I'm a middleman. So if anybody gets mad at me about 7.8% sales tax, they can get mad at New York instead. I'm not keeping that money.